I am very much honored and moved and excited to be here. I haven't given a presentation for some time, so I was a little bit nervous, but I have to say that almost everyone in this room is a friend, and I've been given so many hugs at the beginning of this event, and I mean, my God, the poster for this event is this cute puppy, so you can't get more, love and support. When I was thinking about what I could share with you here this morning, I thought I would start with a short story or introductory anecdote. So I was actually originally invited by Marcel to speak at last year's September Creative Morning event. And that event had the theme of magic. So as you know, every Creative Morning event has a theme word. And the theme for that event was magic. And I was so excited. And I felt so related to that theme of magic. And I even thought about all sorts of insights that I could share about design and magic and creativity. But unfortunately, as that September approached, it appeared that I was not going to return on time from my travels to give that talk. So I wrote to Marcel, and I suggested that, instead of giving the talk here at Hansen, that I would just broadcast my talk from the ashram in India, where I happened to be staying at the time. And I thought, it was such a cool idea. And unfortunately, I was a little bit disappointed. So, by the way, this is the ashram. And I was a little bit disappointed when Marcel wrote back and she said, politely declined. She said, no, Ayelet, that's probably not the best idea. So we had to postpone that talk. And so I'm giving this talk instead. So that ashram, it's called Amrita Puri. It's located in the state of Kerala, which is in the south of India. And it happens to be led by a female guru. And she's often referred to as the hugging mother. She's seen by her devotees as this worldly manifestation or worldly embodiment of compassion, which is pretty impressive. And that is because her darshan, Can you hear me like this? No? No seeing? Oh.
Sorry.
Take it's okay now. No?
Yeah, it's the speakers are a little dusty.
Is it okay now?
Yeah.
Okay. So she's known as the hugging mother because her darshan, or her divine gift to her devotees, is that she hugs them. She hugs her devotees and she hugs everyone. And that is actually a lot of hard work for her. So she's been known to give hugs sometimes for 18 to 20 hours a day for 6 days a week. And she has been doing that for many, many, many years. And I can tell you, I've seen it with my own eyes, it's really impressive and moving to see. You see long lines of men and women waiting to kneel down before this guru just to get a single hug that can last something between 3 to 5 seconds. And most people just burst into tears by the time they get out and up of that hug, because it really is moving. I mean, as adults, how often, do we get to experience something like that? To have, to feel this wave of compassion that is being felt for us and only for us for a duration of 5 seconds. So I think it was probably one of the most moving things that I've ever seen. Oh, that's nice. And it is with compassion that this guru has established one of the biggest ashrams in India, with more than 2,000 devotees living on the ashram grounds at any given moment, at any given time, and many, many more devotees all around the world. And so, I thought it was a little bit amusing or appropriate, or I don't know, maybe it's achieved with the divine guidance of this guru that, I didn't get to give that talk about magic, and I'm giving this talk instead with the theme being compassion. So here's to you, Amma. That's her name. And this guru, Amma, leading this ashram, she also established her own NGO, which is called Embracing the World. Embracingtheworld.org is the URL that you can look for. And this NGO uses donation money to provide humanitarian work or to do all sorts of acts of charity all over the world. Sorry. So they've been helping tsunami refugees. They've been building housing for thousands of tsunami refugees. They're helping the poor. They're building homes for orphans. They're helping Indian women get paid work. And they've even established huge things like universities and hospitals that are accessible to the poor in India. And they're also been doing things all over the world, reaching out in times of crisis. So really amazing work. I'm not good with this. So this is the ashram again, and the ashram itself, the facilities, it functions as a sort of a small village or a kibbutz, if you like. Well, not so small. It's actually pretty huge. But everyone who comes to stay at the ashram, even if they come only for a short visit, are asked to contribute to the work that is needed to keep this ashram going, okay, to keep it functioning. So when you join an ashram or when you come to stay, even for a short while, you're asked to do a work that is called seva, or karma yoga work. And according to the tradition of Hinduism, karma yoga, because it helps one to purify their mind, karma yoga is one of the paths to spiritual liberation. And so I don't know if I'm sure some of you have seen the movie Eat, Pray, Love or read the book. So you might recognize this scene where Julia Roberts is scrubbing those endless floors of the ashram where she's staying at in India. So that is a kind of karma yoga. Okay,
It's not the same ashram.
No, it's not the same ashram. No, that one was, I think, more in the north of India and smaller, much smaller. So karma yoga can be anything from cleaning to cooking to doing the laundry, things like that. And in an ashram that is as big as the ashram I was staying at, it can even be all sorts of administration stuff, like, or even fun stuff, like running yoga classes for foreigners that come to visit the ashram, that is physical yoga, or volunteering in the ashram's information center, because it really is a huge ashram. Or translating marketing texts for raising funds for the ashram to all languages. So it can be a lot of things. And when I was staying there, my own karma yoga, lucky for me, was to give daily UX and design lessons.
Sure beats scrubbing floors.
It did. Yeah, I suggested that. So my karma yoga was to give daily UX and design lessons to the ashram's in-residence front-end developer. They have one. They have everything. He was, of course, also a devotee of the guru, living in the ashram. So his name was Dwight, a really sweet fellow. We became good friends. And Dwight was really excited to learn UX, which was fun for me. And I guess he was also just happy to have someone who speaks English with whom he could discuss the design of the website, because how often does that happen? And for me, I was really thrilled just to be in that place and feel useful, but also to to feel that I was lending my skills, specifically design skills, to this huge humanitarian operation, in a sense. A humanitarian operation that was doing a lot of good in the world. And I was, lending my hand to that operation for a short while. So that felt really, really good for me. And so it got me thinking. Now, this wasn't the first time that I thought about what it was that I was doing with my skills, with my design skills. But this experience, it kind of made me think about it some more. So, a disclaimer, okay? It's not that I think that I've ever worked, it's not that I've ever worked with companies that I thought that were doing harm. Okay, that's not the case. And it's not that I think that, my past work was meaningless. That is not the case. In fact, I can say that I'm very proud of some of my past work, and I feel very proud of some of the things that I took part in or that I helped to create. So, the design team in Lightrix is one of those things. I hope that you all know Lightrix. Just to be fair, it's the most amazing startup in Jerusalem. And probably, just to be fair, has the most amazing design team in Israel, if not, And so I felt very, very proud to be part of that team, to feel like I was a great designer, and to be surrounded by other designers that I thought and I still think are phenomenal. So that gave me professional pride. Okay, but putting that aside, when I looked back, and I mean, all the way back through my career history, I asked myself, was I actually, lending my skills to more compassionate causes or to things that I thought were significantly helpful or needed, like humanitarian work or building housing for tsunami refugees. So I can say that I did take part in some projects that I thought were more, compassionate. So, for example, somewhere back in 2013, I started with a few wonderful partners from the Jerusalem community. I think they're all here. So we started this event series called Do It Good, or Lasot Et Ze Tov. This is a series of hackathon events in which we've invited developers and designers to come and contribute their time and skills to improving the websites and the digital presence in general of Israeli nonprofits. And that felt really great to be part of, probably because of the people. And besides from that, I also, I did similar kind of volunteering in other hackathon events or opportunities. And still, I wasn't sure that, most of the time I was lending my skills to causes that I thought were significantly helpful. Is the sound bothering you? Okay.
It's the speaker.
Okay. I have a confession. I like to read self-help books or self-development books. I find them inspiring, some of them. And it was my observation that, in the past decade, there have been, it was really popular to write and read a lot of books about happiness and how to be happy. And another observation that I had was that the focus of these books kind of shifted from how to be happy to how to lead a good life, which is kind of a more ancient notion. And then I think the focus kind of shifted some more to how to lead a meaningful life. That's only my observation. And in one of the books that I read recently, or maybe it was an audiobook, I can't really remember which one, but anyway, I came across this lovely little story that I thought I would share with you today. And this is the story of the 3 bricklayers. I'm sure some of you are familiar with it. I don't remember it by heart, so I'm going to read it. Okay, so a man came across 3 bricklayers, or builders, who were working at chipping chunks of granite from large blocks. 3 men who were, preparing bricks. And then the first bricklayer, he seemed really disengaged. He seemed, not to be interested in his work. He kept looking at his watch to check the time, etc. And so when this man, the visitor, approached him and he asked him what it was that he was doing, this first bricklayer said, what did he say? He said, "Oh, I'm laying bricks, and right now I'm hammering at the stupid rock. And honestly, I really can't wait till 5 o'clock when I can just go home." Now, the second bricklayer, he seemed to be more interested at his work. And when the visitor approached him and asked him what it was that he was doing, this second bricklayer said, well, he said, "I am a builder, and I'm building a cathedral. And right now, I'm molding this block of rock so that it can be used to construct a wall. It's not bad work, it's okay, but I'll sure be happy when this work is done." And then the third bricklayer, he seemed to be really into what he was doing. He wasn't even noticing the scene around him, and every now and then he took a few steps back to kind of admire his own work, like an artist. And so when the visitor approached him and asked him, "Dear sir, what it is that you are doing?" this third bricklayer said, he looked to the sky and he said, "I am building the house of God." So I really like this story. And I think that this story really gives us hints on the nature of motivation, and especially the nature of professional motivation. So if we, try to take this story to the realms of design, if we imagine that we asked 3 designers what it was that they're doing, we could get, 3 different answers. So one designer could be saying something like, "I'm creating layout options for this onboarding screen." So that's technical, really. And then a second designer could say something like, "I'm a product designer, and I'm working on this app." So that's more professional pride, right? But then we could get a third answer, which would be something like, "I am building this service that I hope would help people be more efficient with their time." Or, "I am helping this organization to help teachers to feel more connected to their students." Okay? So that's a completely different style of answer. And we can imagine that this kind of, that a designer that would give this kind of answer probably feels much more fulfilled with their work. Sorry, gathering my thoughts here. So indeed, when this was researched, one of the main parameters that were found to impact motivation in work beyond a sense of autonomy and a sense of mastery of one's craft was the sense of having a calling, or feeling that the work itself was valuable, not just because it's good work, but because of the context of the work. And more specifically, when this was researched, it was shown that the people who were most satisfied with their life's work were those that constantly felt that their work has contributed to others. Okay? So it seems that when we focus on others, instead of having a more internal focus, we get to be more fulfilled with our work and in life in general, at least according to what research says. Or in other words, cultivating compassion as part of our view of work can make us feel more fulfilled in our work. At least that's the translation that I'm giving to this. And I wanted to add another thought. Specifically about cultivating compassion in design. So I'm sure many of you are familiar with the concepts of design thinking or user-centered design. And empathy is considered, one of the steps in design thinking processes. So, and indeed, to feel empathy for our users can help us to better understand the needs of our users and so to create better products, for sure. But the kind of compassion that I'm talking about here today, I see it not so much as a design tool, like empathy in design thinking, but more of a design fuel, or the fuel that is needed to not just achieve great products, but to actually, go through the very long journey that is needed to achieve, to complete great products or to get to the finished product. And I think this kind of compassion can also impact the quality of the work. So, it's not the mic. So I think this kind of compassion can also impact the quality of the work, but it's horrible, this thing.
Sorry, I apologize.
Okay, I think it's better now. Yeah. So I think this kind of compassion can also impact the quality of the work. If we think, we can see this in the story of the 3 bricklayers, right? Having the sense of purpose also had an impact on the quality of the work that was done. So yes, I think that empathy can give us insights on how to create great products. But the compassion that I'm talking about, can get us to strongly want to create great products. If you're with me on that. And I think that goes a long way. Okay, so where does this meet us? איפה זה פוגש אותנו? Well, I can tell you where this has met me. So I had the time to contemplate my own professional path, lucky for me again, and I realized that, I probably would still want to do design and UX work, but that if I could, if this was possible, that I would want to do design and also try to contribute causes that I thought were more significant or meaningful. And so I started highlighting, thinking about what were the causes that I thought to be meaningful, what was meaningful for me. And if you're curious, I came up with all sorts of things. Things like the well-being of others and specifically the emotional well-being of others. Things like fighting narrow-mindedness, more efficient education, things like that. And then after causes like this came causes like animal liberation and global warming and things like that. And these causes came later for me, not because I think it's less important to free animals or something like that, but because the causes that came first were causes that I thought were meaningful and that I felt kind of naturally inclined to spend my time thinking about. Okay, and I thought that, the combination of the two is important. So after that, when I was being offered opportunities to, work on different projects, little by little I found myself more intuitively saying no to projects that were not so much aligned with these thoughts and notions, and saying more maybes and yes to projects that were more aligned with this. And so lately, I've said yes to working with a startup that strives to improve diabetes care given to diabetes patients. Now, I have to say this is not exactly fighting narrow-mindedness or something like that, but I do feel relatively internally aligned with this sort of work, which feels pretty good. And another interesting thing that I can share about this is that I now have to think about new kinds of KPIs. So I still have to think about, how to convert users, but I need to consider all sorts of other KPIs, like how many users have lower levels of HbA1c, which is just an indicator that points to how many users are healthier, and how many patients will suffer less from long-term diabetes side effects. So I think that's kind of cool for me. No time. Okay. Okay, so where does this meet you? It doesn't have to meet you at all. I didn't come here to preach. I just, wanted to share some of my thoughts and, tell you about my journey. But if you do want to think about this some more, and if you do want to get some examples on, compassionate design projects that you can take part in, then I would send you to read this article written by a friend called Liora Yukula. I actually accompanied her in this sort of writing support group for designers, and her article titled איך מעצבים יכולים לשנות את העולם לטובה, how designers can change the world for the better, tells her own story of developing as a designer that gradually took part in more compassionate design or design for social impact. And she also lists a lot of examples for where one could study good design or design for social impact, and where you can find freelance projects that are more compassionate, or jobs, things like that. So I would really recommend that article. So, will I always be true to this new philosophy? Probably not. But I hope that I will to some extent. I definitely don't think that everyone should do this, but I do think that there are some good reasons to consider this. And these are not moral reasons. It's not because it's right to do. I think these are really egocentric reasons, at least according to some research studies. So thanks. I hope that I've enriched you in some way. And if not, then I hope you at least enjoyed some of the photos of the ashram in India. Thank you very much.